everybody. I'm John Self. Welcome to Office Hours. It's Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we're delighted to be with you. We've got a good program lined up for you today. We're going to be focusing on the white collar recession. I've been writing about that quite a bit, and it really is sort of a conundrum. It is confusing to people. You hear all these, if you watch online feeds, everybody talks about how they were able to find a job using this site or that site. Most of the jobs that people are grabbing, the online jobs, et cetera, are really staff positions. They are not executive and management positions. Today, we're going to talk about why the market is dysfunctional, what's happened, and what you can do about it. So let's get busy. First of all, thanks for joining us. We're going to focus today, as I said, on the white collar recession. And this is really a presentation that's really geared more for executives, managers, although supervisors, certainly it comes into play with them as well. So let's go to the day's rundown. Why is the market shrinking? What is the outlook for recovery? How should we respond? And strategies for career management and successful job search. First, let me tell you a little bit about some things we're doing at johngself.com. We're really committed to supporting you in your career, and so we're trying to upgrade our programs and make them more palatable. And I'll tell a funny story about myself in just a minute, but first of all, we're adding some services. In the premium coaching package, which you can find on our webpage, click the little red button on the right side that says your membership portal. And we're now expanding and adding some rich texture to job search and outplacement support. We are adding career change planning and coaching. These programs will be going up over the next week. We will be adding clear career planning advisory services for people who are really struggling to try to get a handle on what they want to do with their career. They know what they want to do, but they really are struggling on how to get to where they want to go. And we also will be offering a pay-as-you-go pricing option. So I hope that will be helpful, especially if you've been struggling to find a job. We are also adding services in the Your Career Community Group. Now, I had made a decision that I thought we should increase that because we're beginning to get members and go from $49 to $59, to try to attract more people who think that more money is more value. Well, my advisory board told me that that's exactly what we don't need to do. So yesterday's great reference to the fact we would be charging $59 August 1st is now no longer operative because I have an advisory group and I listened to them. And they were very adamant and very supportive of what we were trying to do, but they just felt that was a bad idea. So I concur. We're going to leave the pricing at $49 for the duration. It was one of those moments, what the hell was I thinking? Okay. Now, one-on-one live coaching will be offered to members of our group for about half price. So you pay the $49 a month, keep paying that, and anytime you need coaching or that sort of thing, you will get it at half price. That's about $75. You will also get free weekly scheduled call-in calls. So we'll have a place up there for you to schedule the calls, and you'll get weekly call-ins where we can talk about your progress, any problems you're having, or any encouragement you need. Now, one thing that will change is office hours. This program on August 1st will be members only. So it will not be a generally distributed live stream, and it'll be on our Facebook page, and it'll also be I think it's going to be on the Facebook page. That's where it will be exclusively, unless we're able to work something out with LinkedIn. So that's something we've got going. Okay. Let's see what else is. That's pretty much it. We've changed we were going to do lunch and learn and make that first, but people said, no, your feedback was put office hours. If we're going to join, we want to be sure we get all the value into the paid side. And so we're keeping office hours. We're going to make that a members only as of August 1st. The newsletter, which we kicked off, it's on Substack because it's just a great platform for newsletters. And this is a subscriber daily newsletter. It's included in your membership. So if you are a premium member, or if you are a member if you're a member on the community side, you get the membership. Now, we are still having a problem with the connection, automatic connection from the subscription side to the newsletter side, but we're trying to manually catch that. So if you're not getting the weekly newsletter, just let me know and we'll go back and check. We're working on a Zapier automation right now, and so hopefully we can get that up and going shortly. So that's the newsletters. We're getting some good feedback. We've got 500 and something subscribers already. And this includes one of our most popular features. It's funny, weekly Funny Friday photos. And if you have some that you enjoy that make you laugh, submit them and we'll give you credit for them. You can submit them to info@johngself.com. We're happy to give you the credit if you want it. If you don't, say, no, 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 don't use my name. We're glad not to. We're glad to leave you as anonymous. But we have a lot of fun with those, and we hope that you'll participate and contribute, because I think on Friday afternoons, if you're in the job market, you really just need something to laugh at and to feel good about starting the weekend. And we want to be here for you. We want to try to provide content throughout the week. If you need us over the weekend, you can even set up special help over the weekend if you're kind of down in the dumps. And I've been there. I know what it's like. I had a brand new son and was laid off in a merger, a failed takeover attempt. And I was cut off and left in Houston, Texas with a mortgage, a new baby, and no income. So I was scrambling to find a job. And even though it was not a long search back then, it was about 60 to 90 days, that felt like forever. And I began to think it, even at the 70th day, which wasn't that long, I kept thinking, I'm never going to work again. It was always something that I'd always done. It'd been automatic. And here I was, couldn't work. I was at home. Gosh, it was a terrible, miserable feeling because I wasn't fulfilling my end of the a bargain to be a productive spouse. And so I have gone through all that. I've gone through the emotional upheaval a couple of times in my life. So I know what it's like. And so we're here to help you. And if you send a text and say, look, I'm really down, can you call me? We're happy to do that. If you're a member or if you're in our premium package, we are here to help you. Okay, so that's some of the changes we're making in our activities. Now, why is the executive market shrinking? Everybody looks at the pandemic, but that's not exactly the whole story. So let's explore that together this afternoon. I think that it's important to note that the trend really began with computer web automation. And you saw it early on in transportation at airports where they didn't need as many counter employees. They started shrinking that. Now, this is not the executive level, but this was an excellent example of where automation started eliminating jobs. And as a matter of fact, I was at the Atlanta airport, and the red cap who was helping me check my bag to New York said, have you got your seat assignment yet? And I said, no, I didn't know much about kiosk. I was traveled a lot, but this was all new. Continental was really early on in the process of automating their boarding and all of those aspects of ticketing. And the guy said, well, let me show you how it works. He said, this is my terminal and I'm going to get you a seat. And he said, now, where do you want to sit? And there was the seat diagram on the screen at the curbside where I checked my bag. And this was early on. I mean, this was before any other airlines were doing it. And he said, we're already able to cut back. More people are not checking the luggage. And he said, we don't have as many red caps out here as we used to. And he said, when I retire, they probably won't replace me. Now, so that was an early stage example of how it happened. But now what happens is that red cap was also checking you in. So that's called job elasticity. That means that one person is doing more than one thing. And it is now more and more common throughout the universe. There's a company that makes makes security computers and software to help companies, law enforcement agencies, governments, evaluate and connect the dots on business intelligence, security intelligence, et cetera. And this is really important stuff. And the company has two things when they don't have any salespeople, but they sell because selling is it's not anybody's job, it's everybody's job. And so some of their technologists go out with the implementation and are there on site and are helping the customer get used to the computer system, and they're removing the glitches and the bugs that aren't really working the way they're supposed to. They get the corporate team in to help solve the problems, and it presents a great customer service experience. and that helps sell and upgrade. It helps identify other projects that they can do with the company. So it's not anybody's job, it's everybody's job. So now you have technologists that are also salespeople, they're also customer support people. And you don't need a dedicated non-technology sales staff to sell a piece of software. You're also seeing, you really started seeing that in 2010, and that's when those companies really began to move into play. Now, with early stage automation, you eliminated a lot of early level customer service. So it's not uncommon in the early days of that automation to hear my wife yelling, agent, agent, agent. But that was part of the automation. That was the early stage AI, voice recognition software, kind of like Siri, kind of like some of the other computer voices. And they were doing directions. It's gotten better, but those are more and more people that the airlines don't have to employ. So I was traveling the week that the airlines deregulated. This was back in the 70s. And one Sunday at night, when I was traveling from Portland to Chicago, and sitting in first class, all these people in hiking gear, and they'd been out all day, and it was kind of aromatic. And I kept thinking, what the heck's happened? And the flight attendant said, this is the first day. This is the first of the month. This is the first day of airline deregulation. And she said, don't try to call reservations and get a ticket because they're overwhelmed. And in fact, there were all these stories about waiting, talk to a reservation agent for, hours. And now, how many times do you talk to a reservation agent on the phone for an airline? Hardly ever. You may talk to the baggage agent on the telephone, but rarely there too. So this AI and automation is beginning to eliminate jobs. And people poo-poo this and say, oh, it's not going to be that much of a deal. It's just going to make us more productive. I think those people are whistling by the graveyard. I think that there are going to be a lot of jobs and a lot of white collar jobs, and McKinsey and Company and other consulting groups that have looked at this issue say it is going to be significant. And so it's really important now, as the job market is shrinking, it's shrinking at the lower level. We're already beginning to see it shrink at the management executive level. Why? Because we don't need as many people supervising the people that we don't have working there anymore. Changes in the digital privacy and ad revenue models have hit the tech sector. The tech sector, which was always a great place to work, really great white collar jobs, in the last 2 years, they've laid off almost 500,000 people. 500,000 people in tech alone. And the cascading impact, I think, is going to continue with negative executive hiring trends for the foreseeable future. So the outlook: AI-powered automation is going to reshape where we work, how we work, and what we do. And that's why it is so important to really get your hands around this trend. This is not a passing thing. This shrinking of the executive market is not passing. This is going to be around. We're forecasting, with the people I talk with, we're forecasting that you're going to see a very challenging executive and management job market through the end of Q4 in 2025. And it could extend beyond that. Now, I think there will be some adjustments. There will be some increases in hiring, but you have to understand there's going to be, from now on, even if you're in your 40s, the rest of your career, there are going to be a lot more people looking for work than there will be jobs. Even with the a booming economy, more and more of the jobs are going to be automated. And some of the projections that you're seeing are pretty significant. Mark Cuban is saying between 5 and 10 million jobs will be lost. Now, keep in mind the context. We lost about almost 20 million jobs temporarily during the pandemic. Now, while the pandemic hiring has resurged, that it bounced back, what did not bounce back was the management and executive hiring. So that's why there's contraction in that area. One of the other things we have to worry about is that, the continuation of the work from home, leaving empty offices behind. A major Manhattan building, the building that was the inspiration for the song Money, 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 Tommy James and the Shondells, was bought this past week for about $130 million. That's a pretty steep discount because when Blackstone, a big private equity company, bought the building originally in 2014, it was kind of an old midtown building that it still had a lot of good life in it, and so their plan was to spruce it up, put in restaurants, a lot of amenities for their building patrons because it was in a good location. It was on Broadway, and about the time the pandemic hit, Blackstone walked away from the building, gave the keys back to the lender in 2012, and the building was sold at a discount of about $130 million. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. I know you say, how in the hell, why is this affecting management and executive hiring? For the first time since the 2008 2009 financial crisis, triple A investors, people who bought the high grade investment in mortgages on that building, got 72 cents on the dollar. They did not get 100%. Their credit default swap did not reimburse them in full insurance. So there was a big loss, and that was a big, big, big eye opener for a lot of investors. A building in Fort Worth, the tallest building in Fort Worth, which was purchased for about 140 or 150 million 2 or 3 years ago, sold on auction earlier this month for $12 million. $12 million. And somebody's having to eat those loans, those loan losses. And some bankers are projecting that it could have a significant impact on Center City businesses. It's going to have a significant impact on the bank loans that made on commercial real estate. And this could really roil the markets and impact retirement funds and depress hiring. So you need to keep an eye on what's happening with the commercial real estate and watch the reports of buildings being sold, buildings being, mortgages, being foreclosed on. BlackRock is one of the largest private equity investment companies in the world. And yet they lost a building to foreclosure. They hadn't made a mortgage payment on it in 2 years. So so the economy in some respects is really good, but just like in 2008, 2009, when we thought everything was going well, and then people realized that we had a big real estate bubble. Well, it's not exactly the same thing this time because a lot of the bigger banks are better reserved and in a better position to weather a storm, but a lot of the regional banks are not. So you have to keep an eye on what's happening in your region and how that may affect the job markets where you live and work. Now, getting back to why we're experiencing these issues and what's the outlook for the future, I think AI automated reductions in force over the next 10 years is going to dramatically impact the employment, whether it's 5 million, 10 million, or 15 million. McKinsey once said for white collar jobs worldwide, it'll be 1 trillion jobs. But we're already seeing fewer clerical support administrative personnel, which means we need fewer managers to oversee those jobs, which means we need fewer executives to oversee the overseers. I know that sounds kind of convoluted and maybe a little glib, and I apologize, but you see how the market's contracting. We don't have as many clerical and administrative people. And, people like AP clerks and AR clerks and general ledger clerks and people that have been working in those jobs, and they were important jobs and they were valuable jobs, and because that's the only way we could get the work done. Those people are at great risk, and within 5 years, many of them will lose their jobs, and they probably will have limited opportunities if they don't start thinking now about what they can do for the future. So the question is, how should you respond? And I get that a lot, and I think the thing I want to stress is informed planning. You got to continue your education. And I'm not just talking about formal education, going off and getting another MBA or PhD. There's a run on the number of people getting PhDs, and I'm not sure they're adding anything to the process. I mean, it's great for them. They've accomplished something. They can call themselves doctor, and that's appropriate. They worked hard and to get that. But we now see so many people going into hospital administration that have doctors in this and doctors in that, and there's no correlation yet between having a doctor's degree and your ability to produce value. So that's another issue. People are trying to using credentials to try to bolster their position in an organization. It's going to get down to, are you up to date on what's going on in the real world? Are you willing to adapt your skills? because the flexibility is going to be critical for success. It's not necessarily going to be your doctorate. It's not going to be necessarily your MBA. Those are great things to get. They're hard to get. It's a tribute to your discipline to achieve those credentials, but you can't think that that is going to be what saves your career going forward in a tumultuous time. So here's how you should respond. I think first of all, you got to be okay with change. You got to embrace change. And I know for those of you who don't really like it, and there are times that I get pushbacky. I mean, I don't like it, and I kind of resist. But let me tell you something. You get pushback, and that's just you can't do that. And I know that it's really challenging, but you have to embrace change. That is going to be so important. And part of one of the things we do when we're coaching people is really work with them on that issue. Number two is you got to be curious. You got to be open to learning, and that's not just formal learning. That's the newspapers. I'm a subscriber to something called Business Insider. It's a great online publication. It's been around for a while. They have stories and information that other sources don't cover. It's a great information. I read the Wall Street Journal. I'm looking for trends that are going to affect the management and executive segments, which is where I do my work. You want to be mindful. You want to be mindful, and you want to be informed, and you want to be mindful that the ground is shifting beneath our feet as we speak. And this is not going to stop. It's not going to go away. So some changes are going to be gradual, and I think some changes are going to come at breathtakingly quick pace. So then you have to be flexible. Number 4. 5, be the solution. If you're in a company, the one thing that will help you in tumultuous times survive is your flexibility and your ability to solve problems and be valuable to the organization. You want to be hard to ignore. And that if you're looking for a formula to avoid layoffs, to avoid the contraction of eliminating people, is you want to be hard to ignore. You want to be the solution to problems. You want to be somebody they can depend on. You want to be flexible. All these things that we're talking about here. And of course, the key element is you've got to have the performance. You must meet or exceed expectations. Not last, but number 8 is be compassionate. Be helpful, and be grateful. I think that really helps shape your persona and how people will react to you. And that having that trustworthy, likable kind of persona is very, very valuable when it comes to organizations trying to decide who to lay off. And I know that sounds so self-serving. That sounds so contrived, but it's true. In a layoff, there are people that are really good at their jobs that get laid off. Why? Because they didn't have the connections, they didn't get along with the right people, all of the above. So it's really important to consider that now in these key things that you have to do. Be courageous. I think sometimes we don't want to take chances. We don't want to try new things. Number 9, be courageous. And finally, the 10th thing is really important. Be honest. Be honest, first of all, with yourself. Are you ready? Are you really flexible? Are you really willing to take on the new challenges? Can you accept change? Will you be willing to be nimble? All of those key points. You got to be honest with yourself. Is it time for me to move on? Sometimes people hold on too long, and it becomes catastrophic in their careers. Be honest with yourself. If you see the tide changing, if you no longer feel like you fit into the organization, don't wait until you get that terrible knock on the door on a Friday afternoon from your boss that says we need to have a conversation. That's the last thing you want. Take advantage, be proactive, but be honest with yourself, and be honest with your colleagues. Be honest with your boss. That's really, really important in this time, because all of these things come together, and they're going to help you deal with this incredible transition that we're going through. Now, living with these 10 guides, this is not easy stuff. It requires, I think, daily mindfulness and focused practice. That's one of the reasons I journal. And when I'm out of my routine of journaling right now, and I feel disconnected, and I don't feel like I'm enjoying my work as much. And so tomorrow morning, that's I'm back into the journaling business because I've been busy, I've been going to the gym, haven't really felt as great as I have for a while. And so, I just kind of dropped that off the radar, and I can feel it. I can feel it when I don't journal, when I don't keep my journal and reflect on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It requires mindfulness, daily mindfulness, and focused practice. Now, people say, "Oh, John, you're just a natural." I'm not. What you see today is kind of, there's so many people that are so good at this. And I'm just learning, and I'm struggling, and I'm trying to get better every day. And I have a great friend in town, Mike Landis, who was a incredibly talented executive. And was a news anchor and won tons of Emmy awards. And the I just went blank. Sorry. The Edward R. Murrow Award, and he's won Emmys, and he's won just so many awards because he's a great, talented anchor. And he was smooth, and it was easy. He doesn't have a college education. He's terribly bright. He's terribly well educated, and he's terribly well read. But he is good at it, not because God made him automatically a good anchorman when he was born, but because he got interested in radio and he perfected his ability, and he learned how to use the skills that he had, the things that he was born with. He learned how to use those, and he really worked hard and perfected those. And he is like any athlete or a musician or anyone else. These skills are acquired through hard work and with focused practice. Ichtok Perlman, a lot of people say it was a God-given gift. He was born with that talent. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, that that's true. So when you start trying to find excuses or reasons to lie to yourself about, well, why are you not getting better? It's because you're not putting the effort, the focus on this kind of practice. And it's hard, and it's hard to force yourself to do it. Every time I do a stream, I'm trying to get better. I don't know if I am or not, but I'm trying to get better. And this is a new thing because, when I started out, I was a crime writer and investigative reporter covering the mean streets of Houston. The television was all film and all this other stuff, and I didn't understand any of that. When I became a coach, I had to start learning about what streaming was and about how to use video to communicate more effectively. And I think these are all things that we'll have to do in order to be effective and be competitive for the jobs in this new normal for executive and management recruiting. Now, let's talk about some strategies for managing your career through this epic change. And I really do, I really do believe that this is going to be an epic change. And I can't really, I don't have the insight yet to tell you how disruptive it's going to be, but I just have this sense that fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night. First of all, you hear me talking about this all the time, but you must have a career plan more than ever before. Having a career plan, one that's written, will help you lock in to where you are now, what you want to do, what you're trying to accomplish, and then we start adding other elements to it. But you got to start with a career plan. What do you want to accomplish with your career? It may change. The market may force you to change, but you got to start with a plan, with a goal. You got to have one goal to start with. Okay, so what should your plan include? Well, your plan should include your mission and your value brand statement. Your mission is, what do you want to accomplish in your life with your career? And what's your value brand statement? It's your signature strengths and why someone should hire you, why you can be valuable to help someone or be valuable for somebody's organizations. You need to perfect your goals, your short, mid, and long-term goals. Okay, because some of the things are changing so fast now that you need to have really a written outline for where you're going, but then you have to be prepared for change and pretty quickly. You also need to have emergency preparedness provisions in case for you professionally and your family. If you suddenly lose your job and you're not planning on it, and you need to think about, okay, I need to put more money aside because the severance payments aren't as big as they used to be. So I need to start adding more money for the rainy day fund. You may maybe not go out to eat as many times or go to as many movies, or maybe look at how many streaming services you're paying for. Gosh, you can spend a fortune on streaming services and subscriptions. So look at all those things and decide what's really essential to help you with your career, to provide entertainment for your family, but really be more disciplined with your spending so that you can put more money aside in your rainy day fund if you have a certain sudden job loss. And if you're at the lower end entry level management where you might be more vulnerable, overseeing AP clerks or AR clerks, absolutely start planning to think about where you want to go. What could you do if you don't have this job? You need to think about that. The options in case of an epic career disruption, job class eliminations. And when I say, excuse me, job class eliminations, I'm talking about whole levels, whole departments, whole floors of people that will lose their jobs because the computer is taking over all those functions. And it won't happen on one day. On Friday afternoon, they're not going to fire 200 or 300 people or 100 people, but you'll start seeing it get smaller. Your floor, the number of people on your floor get fewer and fewer and fewer. And it's just the nature of the game. And so you need to be prepared. You need to have a plan. What are you going to do? What other skills do you have? So that if you lose your job, you're not going to sit around and be woe is me. You have a plan and you can start acting in that direction. And with automation, I think, this is something that this is really important. We are in uncharted waters. So don't sit back and say, well, it really doesn't matter if I have a plan. I'm going to be okay because it always works out. I have faith in God and I have faith in God too. But I think also God expects us to live up to our responsibilities as providers, as husbands or wives, to be sure we take good care of our families. So we need to have a plan. It needs to be in writing. Again, the research is so clear. People with written plans are more successful than those that don't, and they tend to make more money. So, what are your near to midterm priorities need to be? Well, I would do a SWOT analysis, and this is your think about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And the threats are AI, they're mergers, they're consolidations, any number of things. And there's so many of these things out there. It's hard to kind of track all the threats that you face. But think about those things. Think about your strengths. Understand, get in touch, be honest with you about your weaknesses. And think about opportunities. I'm really good at this. How can I use this and maybe build my own business? Or how can I use this and take this to a different industry and be successful? And be prepared to make corrective adjustments. I mean, you may think this is where I'm going to be in my career path. Let me put it this way. The newspaper business that I started in 1970 is so different than the newspaper business today. And it's kind of sad. I remember being in the press room at the Houston Post. They had 6 Goss headliner presses, and those things could print 45 to 55,000 papers an hour, just running at full speed because they printed 4 editions a night. And it was just incredibly exciting, and you were part of something really unique. Well, that's all changing. They still print a paper in Houston, but many communities you get a paper maybe 1 or 2 days, and some communities it's totally online. So it's much different. Instead of having photographers cover the news, sometimes the reporters are covering the news with their cameras. This is how elasticity in jobs work. People are doing more things. People are editing their own video. In the past, you'd take the film back, send the film back to the studio. They would process it in the lab, and then you'd have special editors come in and cut the video for your story. Well, now it's all being done on iPhones and iPads at the scene. So things are changing. So you have to be prepared with adjustments as these things happen. Now these things were happening in the 90s and 2000s, and they were pretty revolutionary, and people didn't see how it was possibly going to work, but it is. You need to exceed expectations. If you've got a job, you need to focus on not just keeping the job. You need to focus on excelling and being the best you can be at that job. Because if you do get laid off, you need to take that strength, that goodwill with your employer, maybe your supervisor, to get references. It's important to exceed your expectations. You also need to focus on strengthening your brand locally and online. You need to be visible. When I say locally, if you're a manager or an executive and you're in a professional association of finance people or practice managers for doctors or some other area, manufacturers, representatives, you need, if you're together and there are new people coming in, be willing to help mentor new young people coming into the business. Be known as someone who would be helpful, volunteer, but be visible online as well because more and more recruiting is being done with automation, and that's key on LinkedIn. Okay, so be very, very, very sensitive about nurturing your online profile, particularly your base is your LinkedIn profile, but you also need to keep in mind there are other now avenues expanding. The second biggest search engine in the world is YouTube. It's YouTube. And so there are more and more people, more and more executives and managers, in order to be seen, are establishing presence on YouTube. You need to work with your networking 3.0. Now, networking 3.0 is essentially networking tied to a written career plan so that my plan is to become a general manager of a logistics company in the upper Midwest. Okay, great. Start focusing all your networking efforts to build contacts in the upper Midwest, if that's where you want to be. If you're in Houston, and I want to stay in Houston, I really like Houston, floods and all, and I'm a native. You want to build strong contacts in Houston. You want to be involved in your local associations, and related organizations. You want to build strong, deep relationships with those people so that you can advance your career. So it's very career oriented. It's very plan oriented. It's very market oriented. And it's very goal oriented. That's what networking 3.0 is. And if you're not doing it, we can teach you how to do it. It's not hard, but it takes discipline and takes effort. And you also, if you get a new job, during the pandemic, people were changing jobs left, right, and center as quickly as possible. But let me tell you something. Now you need to slow down, especially if you're a manager or an executive, because the jobs are harder to come by. One of my clients who is just incredible, I admire her so very, very much, just was appointed to a very senior executive position, but it took a long time for her to get to that position. Another client, he came to me after being out of work for about 8 months, and it took him another 6 to 7 months to get a new exciting position in a field that it was kind of related to what he'd been doing, but it was in a field that he really, really loved. And so you have to be flexible. You have to come in and say, well, I want to do this, but this is over here and it's related and they're interested in me. So, maybe I'll be strategic about this and make that kind of change. But don't make a change just because somebody offers you a little bit more money, because you do not want to jump out of the frying pan into the fire. This is a terrible time to be the first in, the last in, and the first out on a layoff or a merger. So be extremely, extremely knowledgeable. Do your homework. Are you really advancing your career with this change? Does this company have the financial resources to provide the stability that you want for yourself and or your family? So you want to be very, very strategic. Your ego gets a big boost when a recruiter comes calling. But just be very thoughtful before you make a quick change. Now, this is something I think is something I also want to share with you. In today's rapidly changing job market, with so many career threats, mergers, consolidation, and automation, you cannot afford to sit back and wait. There is nobody going to come rescue you. You have to make your own way. You have to claw your way up. Timidity and uncertainty can be really costly. Not being honest with yourself can be extremely costly. So you must take charge because you're the CEO of you. And if you're married and you're the primary breadwinner, you're the CEO of your family. And this is an awesome responsibility. And these are tough times to have that responsibility. So you need to be thoughtful. Everybody says, well, I'm okay. I got a job and they really need me and like me. That could change tomorrow for any number of reasons. So be happy. Don't spend all your time looking over your shoulder. Exceed expectations, build strong networks within your company, be the good guy that everybody can depend on, be the guy that everybody likes and everybody trusts. Doing a good job and not taking care of people and not building relationships is not the answer. Believe me. I've the last layoff I observed, there were 5 or 6 people that were included that were stunned because they thought they were stars. But what they didn't have was they didn't have a reputation for being nice within the organization. And so they weren't bad people. They just never took time to invest in relationships. And those things can be extremely, extremely important. So be mindful of that. Now, I know this is a lot of work. Go, John, you crazy. We've got all this stuff that we're trying to do. You're just throwing more work on us. How are we going to have time to do it? It's difficult. I understand. It's difficult for me because I'm doing a lot of the same things you are. I understand. It is for me as well. But we have to carve out time. Now, I let certain things slide every once in a while, and I then sort of have to go back and pick up the pieces, okay? And you'll find that too because nobody's perfect. But the real pain is not having to do all this work. It's when you lose your job and you have no plan in place and your bank account is dwindling and the severance is 90 or 180 days. And 180 days for a manager or executives is absolutely no time at all. The time to hire now is between 8 and 14 months. So it's just really, really challenging. So yes, some people get jobs faster, but you can't depend on that. So you just have to get this under control. And you do that by getting organized. So I hope you'll go back and look at this presentation again. It'll be up on our live section and our tab under the live section in our YouTube page, Guiding Your Career, John G. Self, and I hope you'll take a look at it. Now, join us in the morning at 7:30. We're going to be on Career Live, and we're going to be talking about how some companies are using sort of questionable practices to lay people off, and it's hurting their careers. And people, feel trapped by what's happening. We're going to talk about how some of the changes are occurring. Healthcare has still had significant layoffs at the management executive level. You see, there are a lot of organizations. There's strategic realignments. It's not an economy-driven layoff. It's a layoff based on reimbursement and a need for hospitals to recoup their cost of operation and improve their cash position. And so they're shedding their workforce. They're not shedding nurses or clinicians. They're doing administrative people, which is what we've been talking about today. Those people are being moved out. So there are going to be more people in the market looking for fewer jobs. Now, at 11 a.m. Friday, we have your career questions. We answer questions live at 11 a.m. on these same 3 platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. This will be the last Your Career Questions for the summer. We're going to take a little bit of a hiatus. We're working on several things and writing a lot of content. And so this gives me a little bit more time on Fridays to do that. So we're going to take a break, and we may alter our other stream schedule during the summer months as people take vacations. But know this, if you're a member of Your Career Community, or if you're a premium member, a premium client in our coaching, career management, career change, we will be available for you all the time. So just let us know if we can help you. I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you. We hope to see you tomorrow morning at Career for Career Live, where we have some more interesting things to share with you. And we also will be back then on Friday morning at 11 with your career questions. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining us.